Despite the best efforts of Mitch McConnell, Republicans have handed Democrats a bunch of issues we're going to be able to use against them in the upcoming election. Let's talk about it in today's video. Hi, I'm Mike Greiner. I'm a lifelong Democratic activist, a lawyer, and an academic, and I'm here to help you stand up for your democratic values against the MAGA crowd. So one of the most frustrating things for any Democratic activists like us is watching the hypocrisy and the vacuous nature of the rhetoric coming out of the Republican Party. Republicans do nothing to advance an agenda of their own. In fact, in the last presidential election, the Republican platform was nothing other than just support President Trump. The reasons Republicans want to avoid anything approaching a real policy discussion is that when we talk about the actual issues that matter, their positions are incredibly unpopular. We have a bunch of new examples of how the Republicans have squandered any benefit they could be getting from the challenges that Joe Biden has been facing in his presidency. For all the whining we hear about how Democrats are messing things up, here we have Glenn Youngkin, who is elected the Republican governor of Virginia by the narrowest of margins just a few months ago. Youngkin, of course, ran as a more moderate version of Trump, someone who all the things you didn't like about Trump, he wasn't, and all the things you did like about Trump, he was. He made big-time hay out of the critical race theory argument. And since his election, he's made standing in the way of school boards trying to stop the spread of the coronavirus his prime mission. Well, it turns out that this has not worked out so well for Glenn Youngkin. A recent poll shows that his favorability rating is in the toilet, with only 43% of the public disapproving. For all the whining Republicans have been making about President Biden, that's a worse approval rating than he has. And he's only been in office a couple months now. Similarly, a recent poll in Texas showed that the race between Greg Abbott and Beto O'Rourke for governor is tightening up, with 49% of Texans believing the state is on the wrong track. What's more is his policies are incredibly unpopular. For all the noise that's been made about the critical race theory, the poll shows that 59% of Texans believe that Texas teachers should be able to teach an unvarnished version of American history that points out some of the things that we've done wrong. Similarly, 53% of Texans believe that Abbott's push to build a wall on the southern border is wasteful, and his job rating for the first time since he's been governor has fallen below 50%. Similarly, for all the whining that Democrats are so unpopular, polling from YouGov revealed the fact that Republicans remain even more unpopular than Democrats. Now, I know that's not necessarily something to celebrate in and of itself, but it shows that we as Democrats need to stop basically cutting our own throats. Add to this data, a new CBS poll found that 83% of Americans believes books should never be banned, and that 76% of Americans agree that schools should be allowed to teach ideas and historical events that might make some students uncomfortable. This data goes directly counter to the arguments that the Republicans have been making regarding critical race theory and their other social agenda. What's more is during the Trump presidency, Vladimir Putin actually had a pretty positive favorability rating among Republicans. Well, since then, Republicans have turned against Putin, with 80% now saying that Putin and Russia are our enemy. As always, by the way, I'll link to all the polling data and the articles in support of my arguments down below. This polling point is especially relevant as President Biden has been dealing with the crisis of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, while Trump, Tucker Carlson, and some of their acolytes actually say that Putin is a genius and he's doing the right thing, if you can believe that. This position is directly contrary to that of most Americans, even among Republicans, by overwhelming margins at this point. But perhaps most surprising is a new tax proposal being championed by Senator Rick Scott. Now, Scott, the Florida Republican, is especially relevant because of the fact that he's the head of the Republican Senate Campaign Committee. Scott seems to be following Mitt Romney with his 47% of Americans don't pay any income taxes statement. Interestingly enough, Romney's point was not entirely without basis. It turns out that a lot of Americans don't pay any income taxes as a result of the fact that we have a progressive tax system. And as a result of the pandemic, actually, that number has climbed higher, where now as much as 61% of Americans are not paying income taxes. So Rick Scott's response to that is that he wants to make sure all Americans pay income taxes. In other words, all the people who get some kind of benefit from the fact that we do have a progressive income tax, He wants them all to pay more in taxes. So for all this time that Republicans have been claiming that they're the party against higher taxes, it turns out that they're the party for higher taxes for people who aren't rich. And for people who are rich, well, they're for lower taxes for them. Now, I can already hear the Republicans claiming, oh, we're misrepresenting their position on these issues. Well, as it turns out, there's a lot more basis for us making these arguments than the arguments they've been making against us, which in many cases are just them kind of pointing the finger at us while three fingers point back at themselves, kind of the way my mother used to say. But it's about time we as Democrats went on the offensive. We need to make it clear who we stand for, which are the average working people of this country, and who the Republicans stand for, who are the wealthy and the powerful. The only chance we as Democrats have in this upcoming election is trying to take control of the agenda a little bit more and not allowing Republicans and Fox News to continue to dominate the agenda the way they've been doing for the past couple of years. Well, if you like this video, maybe you could check out this other video that I made where I talk about all the lies that Republicans have told about President Biden. And this goes back quite a ways. I'll see you then. And in the meantime, let's hope for continued progress. Thank you.